On October 1st, 1960, a new sun rose over Nigeria, one that cast the shadow of a self-governing nation for the first time in generations. This day was not an accident of history, but the culmination of decades of yearning, struggle, and meticulous negotiation. For many years, the expansive and diverse territory we know as Nigeria was under the firm control of the British Empire. This colonial chapter began in earnest in the 19th century, with Britain gradually amalgamating distinct protectorates, kingdoms, ethnic territories into a single administrative unit by 1914. This was a land stitched together not by common ancestry, but by the convenience of a foreign power seeking to manage its vast resources and strategic ports. The British presence brought profound changes, reshaping the very fabric of society. Colonial administrators imposed new systems of governance and law, often overriding centuries-old traditional structures. They established new borders that frequently cut across ancient ethnic and cultural lines. While they developed infrastructure like railways and roads, these projects primarily served resource extraction. Palm oil, cocoa tin were channeled out to the metropole. For the Nigerian people, this rule meant paying taxes to a distant monarch and living under laws in which they had no say, fueling a quiet but persistent desire for self-determination. The global tremors of the Second World War acted as a powerful catalyst for change. Thousands of Nigerian soldiers had fought alongside the British, experiencing a wider world and absorbing the rhetoric of freedom and democracy. Upon returning home to a system that denied them these very principles, their perspective had irrevocably shifted. A new consciousness began to ripple through the cities and towns. The question was no longer if Nigeria should be free, but when and how. The story of Nigeria's independence is inseparable from the towering figures who gave voice to the people's aspirations. These were not just politicians. They were thinkers, writers, organizers who galvanized millions. Among the most prominent was Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, affectionately known as Zeke. A charismatic and intellectually formidable journalist, Azikiwe used his powerful newspaper, the West African Pilot, to advocate fiercely for a united, independent Nigeria. His appeal transcended his own Igbo ethnic group in the East. He championed a pan-Nigerian identity and became a symbol of national unity, arguing diverse peoples were stronger together. From the western region emerged another formidable leader, Chief Obafemi Awolowo. A meticulous planner and lawyer by training, Awolowo championed federalism and regional autonomy. As leader of the action group, he focused on tangible progress and universal health care. His pragmatic approach offered a clear vision for building a modern, prosperous society, making him a beloved figure in the West. In the vast northern region, the influential voice was Sir Ahmadu Bello, the Sardauna of Sokoto. A descendant of the Sokoto Caliphate, he commanded immense respect. Leading the Northern People's Congress, Bello advocated for northern interests and traditions. Sometimes seen as a regionalist, his goal was to prevent northern marginalization. His steady leadership provided balance in intense negotiations, keeping the North a willing partner in independence. These three, Azikiwe, Awolowo, Bello, are the principal trio of nationalism. But they were not alone. They stood on the shoulders of pioneers like Herbert Macaulay, the father of Nigerian nationalism. Countless others, women trade union leaders, local community chiefs, played vital roles. They organized strikes, held town hall meetings, and educated communities on self-governance. This collective effort, many voices singing one song of freedom, propelled the movement forward. The path to independence was a carefully navigated political journey marked by constitutional conferences, elections, and incremental shifts in power. Britain, weakened by war and facing growing anti-colonial sentiment globally, realized that holding onto its empire was no longer sustainable. It opted for a managed transition, a slow, deliberate handover of control. This began in the 1940s with new constitutions, like the Richards Constitution of 1946. It brought leaders from the North, West, and East together in a central legislative council. The 1950s were a decade of intense political activity and negotiation. Nigerians took on greater responsibilities in governing their own affairs. Britain introduced new constitutions that granted more power to regional governments. This led to the formal establishment of political parties. Azikiwe's NCNC in the east, Awolowo's Action Group in the west, Bello's NPC in the north. A series of landmark federal elections were held throughout the decade. These elections were fiercely contested but crucial. A critical phase of the independence movement took place not in Lagos, but in London. Nigerian leaders journeyed to the British capital for a series of constitutional conferences. Here, Azikiwe, Awolowo, Bello, and their delegations met with British colonial officials. They debated the future structure of the Nigerian state. They argued over the division of powers between the center and the regions, the protection of minority rights, and the precise timeline for independence. These talks were often fraught with tension as leaders balanced regional interests with the goal of national unity. But their persistent diplomacy ultimately secured the final agreement. The culmination came after the federal election of 1959. No single party won an outright majority. The NPC, having won the most seats, formed an alliance with the NCNC. This arrangement saw Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa poised to become the nation's first prime minister. The arrival of October 1st, 1960, was a moment of profound significance, celebrated with unrestrained joy across the nation. In the capital city of Lagos, at the Tafawa Balewa Square, a historic ceremony marked the formal transfer of power. As midnight struck, the British Union Jack was lowered for the last time. The new Nigerian flag was proudly hoisted into the night sky. Green stripe, agricultural wealth, white stripe, peace. The cheers of the massive crowd echoed with the weight of history, a collective sigh of relief and a roar of hope for the future. Princess Alexandra of Kent, representing the Queen, formally handed over the constitutional instruments of sovereignty to Prime Minister Balewa. With independence secured, the new leaders faced the monumental task of building a nation. Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa took the helm as Prime Minister, tasked with managing the day-to-day affairs of the government. Nnamdi Azikiwe assumed the largely ceremonial role of Governor General, later becoming the nation's first president when it became a republic in 1963. Their immediate challenges were immense: unite over 250 distinct ethnic groups, each with its own language and its own traditions. They needed to build a national identity, create equitable economic opportunities, and expand essential services like schools, roads, and hospitals to every corner of the vast country. The transition was remarkably peaceful, a testament to the diplomatic skill of Nigeria's founding fathers and the readiness of the British to relinquish control without a protracted conflict. However, independence was not a magical solution to all problems. The regional and ethnic tensions that had been managed during the fight for freedom did not disappear. In many ways, they became more pronounced as parties competed for power and resources within the new federal structure. The delicate political compromises made before 1960 began to fray under the pressures of governance, setting the stage for future political instability and conflict that would test the young nation's resilience in the years to come. So, why does the story of 1960 matter so deeply today? Independence remains the foundational promise of Nigeria. It represents the moment when the nation's destiny was placed firmly in its own hands. For millions of Nigerians, October 1st is more than just a public holiday. It is a powerful annual reminder of the power of unity, dialogue, and a shared vision. The clear takeaway is that freedom is not merely an event, but a continuous process of nation building. The journey that began in 1960 continues today, reminding every generation that the future of Nigeria is theirs to shape, protect, and build upon. honoring the legacy of those who first dared to dream of a free and sovereign nation.